what was it, Cinco de Mayo. And so we did a piñata, and it was so fun that we decided to do it again. So we have a gigantic piñata behind this curtain, and we've kind of upped the ante this year with a few more gifts. I'll say they're in the piñata, but maybe they're not. But we have a brand new iPad, an Xbox Kinect, a Kindle Fire, an iPod Touch, and to look good carrying all this stuff around, Men's Warehouse is giving away a $500 gift card. So stick around. It's at 5 o'clock. We're going to smash the heck out of the thing. It's a lot of fun. This gentleman here actually gave a full swing backwards and missed the piñata. We have since made sure that we are fully insured. So if anyone does get hurt during the process, we're covered. So with that, I'm going to bring out Tyler Bell for the next session. Our Sixth Sense, the future of persistent sensing technology. It's Tyler, come on out.
Hi, everyone. Right, panelists, come on out, guys. Aren't they lovely?
Olivia.
Righto. Okay.
See here, yeah.
This is one of those joyful panels where we have a large number of panelists and a very small number of minutes. So I'm going to do a very brief and minimal introduction, which basically means that I'm going to say that you now have in front of you 5 men who are very passionate about sensors. I know that many of you in the audience also enjoy a good sensor or two. These days, we're going to learn in the next 25 minutes about persistent location, which involves the very big, so we're talking high-up satellites. The very near, we're talking contextually aware interfaces. The very small, we're talking chips in your phone. And of course, a whole boatload of radio beacons. So that's enough for me. Bjorn, can you start us off with the first introduction, please?
Sure. I'm John Joris, CEO and founder of 5 Examples. My company focuses on user interfaces, such as keyboards and things like that. And we're looking at how to make the user experience easier and make it easier also for devices to understand what the intent of the user is and how to communicate this information across all the different devices that the user has to interact with. And that's what we are focusing on in 5 Examples. We have a product family called TIO, which we'll be talking more about later in a slightly different context.
Good, thank you. Kip.
Sure. I'm Kip Jones with Skyhook, and we provide device location services and location intelligence based on all of those devices out there that are now becoming self-aware of their location. So we're very much enjoying the proliferation of beacons out there and the radio environment that we live in, and hope to continue to refine the ability to provide those devices location.
Sam.
Yeah, I'm Sam. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Aloha Mobile. We do persistent ambient sensing. By using that, we build a mobile behavior analytics platform. On top of that, we want to enable smarter applications that take advantage of all the sensors on the phone and automatically detect the places people have visited. Are they walking or driving? So we are launching our platform today. So welcome to our booth downstairs. Thank you.
Olivier.
I'm Olivier Ricordel, work for Digital Globe, senior manager for LBS. We do remote sensing at Digital Globe. We own 3 satellites, and we operate those satellites. So we make a high-resolution satellite imagery, and we provide the satellite imagery to the largest mapping platform that you're using on your mobile devices, Google Maps, Bing Maps, Nokia Maps, Baidu, Tencent, Yandex, and more.
Peter, thank you.
So my name is Peter Marks. I'm a vice president at Qualcomm Labs, which is a internal incubator at Qualcomm, which is obviously a large company. And it's like Qualcomm Labs and across the rest of Qualcomm, we've been working on what we call context awareness, which is basically sensor fusion, plus a lot of interests and interest profiling, all bounded by a strong privacy regime. And so we're not announcing anything, but there is we are passing out information and very much looking for feedback on what we're doing.
Thank you. Thank you all. All right, so the whole idea of persistent location is that a personal location is an analog thing. You always exist somewhere, but the sampling rate is very low now, right? The sampling rate is a check-in, and basically you have a very few times during the day where you have a user-initiated action. Sam, could you tell us a little bit more about how you are bringing us closer to the nirvana of persistent location, please?
Yeah, sure. Our vision is that you don't have to manually tell your phone to do certain things. And our dream is to build a system that runs on the phone all the time in the background. You don't have to manually turn it on. Once you install it and open it, it just runs in the background all the time. So we built a system that actually monitors all the sensors on the phone automatically, including location, Wi-Fi, compass, accelerometer, and we build a system that automatically understands all the sensors data by understanding whether you are walking, driving, or sitting there stationary. If you're not moving around, are you having a conference in Mission Bay, or you're having lunch at a Chinese restaurant? So we see that's sort of the intelligence we want to achieve. People are saying, Siri is pretty smart, but you have to ask the question first. We see that your phone actually follows you all the time. It should be able to understand you automatically. So it understands your mobile routine. It understands when you got gas last time. It should remind you to get gas next time by just looking at how many miles you have traveled, and based on the speed and the type of driver you are. That's the type of intelligence we see persistent sensing can enable.
Thank you, Sam. Now, Kip, we're talking about high-resolution multi-sensor devices here. Skyhook's been doing Wi-Fi for donkey's years. How does it look like now between Skyhook's very successful positioning technologies and the future of persistent location as it gets more localized, more device-centric with smaller radio beacons?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of macro things that are going on. The continued proliferation of access points and Wi-Fi itself lends to better positioning and more consistent positioning using that infrastructure. But we'll see other sensors, other capabilities, certainly the built-in sensors on the device that allow you to do additional information. You're seeing all sorts of technologies that are providing additional clues. You have the ability now with points of interest to lock people into places, to try to increase the accuracy and increase the capabilities so that we do have persistent location capability out there. And I think it will go beyond just your mobile device, and we see that even with thermostats and other things that are becoming more location aware and context sensitive.
Thank you. Peter, tell us a little bit about the issues that we encounter with the whole manufacturer is now working with within the location space.
Sure. I just want to point out that the weather is better up here today. So Qualcomm, we touch pretty much all parts of the ecosystem, from the chipsets and the sensors all the way up through the operating system and just below the application layer. And it gives us sort of an interesting place because we get to touch the power management and the sensor fusion, if you will, and quite frankly, privacy really at all levels. So we look at power. Our goal is really quite simple. We want to make the smartphone and the network as useful as possible. Everybody here has a smartphone, I'd be willing to bet. And everybody's on the network. And the question is, how do we actually take these smartphones and make them even more holistically useful to your lives? As a personal assistant, as a personal concierge, as a device that knows, for example, to cache your content before you get into the BART, things like that. And power is essential to all of that. Sam's right. always on is extremely important. Always on without draining your battery in 4 minutes is frankly also quite important. So.
Thank you. All right. So a lot of the question now is that we have access to the data. The technological challenges relating to power are being overcome by folks such as yourselves. But there's the whole idea of context. And Sam touched upon this earlier, but Bjorn, I'd like to hear your thinking, is that you have a longitude and latitude, you have a velocity, you have a heading. How does that actually become context, and really what can you do with that context? Because really that's just the beginning of the job, it's not the end.
Yeah, as far as I can see, what's happening is that it's not just location information in the more traditional sense that we are talking about here. We're also looking at the new sensors that are coming up that give us much more local information, local information, such as velocity, how a user behaves. And we can start understanding to make the applications context aware and the device context aware. We can understand motion patterns. And that's a tremendous opportunity in that we can define new ways to make it easier for users to interact with their devices. For example, we may no longer need keyboards to enter data but we can still very efficiently enter text and data, for instance. Then if we can establish devices and the interaction patterns that work both locally on our devices but also remotely, then we can make it easier for devices to talk to each other. And ultimately, as was mentioned, we need to make things context aware. It's not enough to just give location information. We must know the relevance of this information so we can start extracting information that is good information in this very broad spectrum of information.
Thank you. So this is all about relevance and contextual relevance specifically. Olivier, just what the hell do satellite images have to do with all this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we see the use of satellite imagery expanding from just the mapping platform to specific devices. And those new devices who are using sensors are now available. If you're looking at the fitness industry, and I will take one example, is golf. One of our partners, Callaway, relaunched its U-Pro device in order to let you enter the scorecard on the golf course. Well, on this device you have the satellite imagery. And when we're talking about context, it really tells you what's around you. It really tells you if there's a bunker. It tells you the distance from the green. And the satellite imagery help bring information on top of all the sensor information you're getting. And when you're thinking golf, you can imagine that in the future, as you're doing a swing, you're going to get a lot more information than just how many swings you did in order to go to the putt. So we see satellite imagery playing a role there. Another example in fitness is cycling. Garmin released the first touch GPS for cycling, the Edge 800. Beautiful device. You can load satellite imagery on this device. The good thing about this device, it's an ANT plus compatible device, and it's one protocol which is being used today in the sensor space in order to collect information. So if you want to know the cadence, how fast you pedal on your bike, it gives you this information on the device, speed as well. So we really see the sensors complementing satellite imagery very well. And now for the future, and being one protocol, is Bluetooth for us. I can see Bluetooth 4, BLE, for smart connected devices, playing an additional role, fitness and healthcare. Heart rate monitor now are Bluetooth. Some of them are Bluetooth compatible.
Thank you, Olivier. So let's talk about the future now. We've sort of established the state of the art. It's quite apparent that the idea of persistent location is not just in the handset. It's not just in the radio beacons. We've talked about what we're doing now. What I'd like to open up to the panel, the question I'd like to open to the panel is, what do you see as the big challenges that, or rather the next challenge that needs to be overcome? Not necessarily in the sector holistically, but rather specifically within your slice of it. This could be a privacy issue, it could be a technology issue, it could be contextual or a data issue as well. I'd like to hear from you. Peter, perhaps you can start?
Sure. I think I'm going to expand your question to say that we see three big challenges. One is obviously power is a big one. Second one is obviously privacy. Qualcomm has a full-time privacy attorney, as well as a lot of people who are thinking specifically about how you manage a consumer, a user's private information with the handset as being really the place to do a lot of that management. And then the third thing, in terms of the future, even further on the future, is how do you take these things and make them more heuristically useful? How do you start being able to do late predictions, to frankly enable the smartphone to anticipate, let's say 5 minutes ahead or 10 minutes ahead, or quite frankly the fact that you're driving home without having picked up the milk that you were supposed to pick up, that you learned 8 hours before. These sort of things are really, they sound trivial, but the amount of R&D effort that it takes to actually do these things is significant. So.
Who's next?
Yeah, I can answer. Some of the challenges I see, for the places is the duplication issue that we've seen for some years. And when we... On the data side, yes, that's correct. It's when you say you are at a specific location and you've got the sensor trying to locate you, it doesn't know where to check in. There might be multiple stores where you are. So the more accurate those places are geolocated, the better it is as one challenge.
I know some guys who can help you. Kip, tell us a little bit more, mate.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to repeat the challenges. It's pretty well known, privacy, power, and, the determination of places. I know at Aloha, actually, we try to address those challenges. One thing is to address the power problem. We build actually an adaptive sampling algorithm. People all know that GPS is the most of consuming part. But when you are having a conference here, actually, there's no point to sample GPS every, 5 seconds because you're not moving at all. So build that kind of intelligence into the cell phone can save battery power. Only when you are moving around dramatically, when the Wi-Fi environment changes, only then you can turn on GPS and occasionally. And also for the place detection, that's a big challenge. We all know that indoor location is not accurate. You cannot see GPS signals. How do you know you were in Mission Bay? Or this is a relative easier place, but when you are in downtown San Francisco, the business density is really high. And how do you differentiate them? And how do you use different sensors, motion, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth? The user's mobile pattern. How do they move around? We actually can use that intelligence to distinguish different type of businesses.
So Sam, are you talking about changes in ambient light or temperature to know that someone's gone into a building or left it?
Right.
Peter, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, and I have a feeling that Sam would completely agree with me, which is that we're all sitting up here thinking very deep. We've all got our engineer hats out. And there's another challenge which I think is important. It's probably important to a lot of people in the audience, which is what's the business ecosystem for this? How do we turn mobile as a medium into something that brands and companies and everybody else can really interact with and be able to purchase, measure, and make more effective? And I'd be willing to bet that. And it's not an engineering challenge.
Yeah.
No, there are serious business challenges. Kip, tell us a little bit more.
Sure. From my perspective, I agree. There are a number of issues. One, which I alluded to earlier, which is just getting a consistent and accurate location technology deployed. There's still a lot of engineering, a lot of deployment, a lot of money to go into making that happen. But I think when you get that and understanding the ability for a system to understand the quality of the location that it has and the information regarding even vertical information, which today is a very difficult thing to integrate into building, for example. Elevation doesn't really tell me what floor I'm on necessarily. So there's some integration work across the industry with maps and other points of interest databases to be able to determine this information. And I got to admit, I'll throw the privacy out there as well. I think privacy is sort of an interesting beast, but a lot of the issues in the industry that have popped up, I think, could be avoided with better say what you do and do what you say type of behavior. It is those surprises that are really a kick in the pants for the industry when it comes to that.
Now, I'm surprised that no one has said data silos, because one of the great things about GPS is that everybody has access to it. It's centrally managed. We've all paid for it collectively. Does the world need another Wi-Fi data bank? Does the world need another Places database? Does the world need another siloed data resource? We just have 2 minutes left, quite literally. And Bjorn, maybe if you could just have a very short answer, and then we'll work our way down the line. Can you answer that question on data silos?
Yes, I think one of the challenges is to understand what we mean by awareness. Devices need to be aware of what we intend to do. And for that, they need to understand how they interact together. So the network of devices, to establish that, to understand that, is a way of to understand that you need to understand the data. Very, very briefly then also, the device needs to understand you better, the user, to improve the user experience. That means that there will be even more challenges on the privacy, because we're going to have to understand better. The device has to understand each user better. And so the sensor technology has a big technical challenge there in establishing how and what is the user up to create this awareness.
Thank you. It's something we always think of. It's humans and devices and then some server farm somewhere. Actually, there's a great deal of potential in device-to-device communication and contextual awareness. Kip, brief answers, please.
Yeah, I think that there is going to be probably multiple databases. So yeah, there are data silos. How to get those silos to work together. There are good reasons for some of the silos. I think venues, and there are data sets that may be private or semi-private, and so there are reasons, but you need to know how to go to which data silo, if it is. So I'll leave it at that. Sam?
Sam, tell us.
I guess it's, regarding personal data, there's always a tension between privacy and convenience, right? If we can integrate everything on Facebook, on your cell phone, and on Google, it's going to be super convenient. But how do you provide a spectrum, a level of control for the user to specify what they want to share, what they don't want to share? Then that'll be extremely valuable.
Good. So that's a good silo. Example of a good silo. Olivier.
And I will use a silo as a social platform somehow, because all the sensor information we're collecting, we're sharing that with our friends, Nike Plus, Garmin Connect, and Runkeeper API as well. And you can use your data, and that ends up into a social platform. How do you get it through an API? How do you get it out? Sometimes you can't. So privacy is an issue there, as well as being locked into a specific platform. So in order to see those platforms competing, you need to get the data in there first. And I think one of the challenges we did not talk about is also the standards to communicate with sensors, which is also something that the industry has to work on in order to get the data out of the sensors, even before it goes to the silos.
And the only thing more exciting than standards is metadata, but we're not talking about it. Peter, can you bring us home, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I think we have, basic raw sensor data, which is the physical situation that we're in, right? And then there are the inferences that are made upon all that. I don't know how much the cloud needs to know about the raw sensor data. It doesn't need to necessarily know what you're listening to, for example. The user has to have control over that. The inferences, frankly, to make something more useful to me, that's something that consumers can understandably say, okay, I'll share with the cloud as necessary. And it really has to be under their control. In terms of the data silos, this is where I get to have a little fun. But quite frankly, what Factual is doing is really quite fascinating.
Brown noser.
I bet you say that to all the moderators. Good. All right, audience, our time is up. Will you join me, please, in thanking our panelists? Bjorn, Kip, Sam, Olivier, and Peter. Now, stay in your seats because Bjorn is going to take the next 5 minutes to launch some new and very exciting products has coming up. So, panelists, have a seat, and we'll exit after the announcement.
Thank you. Let's see if I can. Let's see. Let's see which one. Is this one on? All right. So the organizers of this event have given us 5 examples. The pleasure to introduce a couple of new products we're launching today. Let's see if I can get this working. Can we get some help with the... We need Christian. That looks better. Let me see if we can get the next frame here. All right, so the 2 products we are introducing today are both along the lines that I mentioned during the panel, that we can change the way we interact with our devices. We're introducing TeoFlix and TeoSquiggle. The TeoFlix is a small, very compact keyboard, only 2 rows, that allows QWERTY input. So it's very easy to learn. You take your QWERTY experience. I'm going to focus more on the second one, TeoSquiggle, since it's more in line with new sensor technology and so on. The quickest way for me, since I only have 5 minutes, is to simply show you a little quick video here. Let's see if we can get...
exercise. Let's draw a line. Now, we'll put some marks on the line. Next, assign some numbers or letters. Let's say we want to squiggle 4, 1, 2, 3. And that's squiggle. Pretty cool, right? Okay, let's take this up a notch. Say we have your old QWERTY keyboard. Let's simplify and make it a line. We'll move these out of the way a little. Just cross the line for each letter you want and let Teo take care of the rest. Let's squiggle a simple phrase. This is really cool. And that's TeoSquiggle for you. Squiggle. Go with the flow. But wait, let's take a look at the big picture. Where can you use squiggle? You can squiggle directly on your touchscreen tablet or on your smartphone or on your wristwatch. You can also squiggle on a separate screen, on a touchpad, or on a game console. In fact, you don't even need this. You can squiggle in midair. Squiggle is ready to go where no interface has gone before.
So that's Squiggle, and that's what we are launching today. And if you're interested in more, then I would love to hear from you. With Rami and Lisa here in the audience, we will help you meet with us if you have an interest. And again, this is a user interface technology that allows both local and remote interaction, similar to a mouse. And it makes it easier for the devices to understand how and what you want to do with it. So thank you for your attention, and I hope you find it interesting.